Are your bees ready for winter? Let's find out. Okay, folks, welcome back to Whistle Ticket Tom here. I haven't done a bee video in a while. Been busy doing other projects, but the bees are doing great. I hopefully got 6 hives right now. I had 7 on the farm, and then I gave a hive back to my school because I had to take it home when COVID started. I started a beekeeping club for my students. I'm a high school teacher. So now I just got 6 hives. I had up to about 9 hives this year, and unfortunately I had a really weak hive that didn't make it, and then I had to combine some hives. But this video we're going to talk about some winter prep and what I do to be successful over the winter. This is, I think, my 6th year as a beekeeper. I'm finally making a little bit of money selling honey and cut comb and candles. I go to farmers markets. I made so far about $2,200 this year. So hey, not too shabby. I'll take it. Next year should be great because I really don't want more than 10 hives. So I already got all the stuff for 10 hives for the most part. So I shouldn't have to buy too much. I got the setup going, and hopefully it's just going to be profit. So let's talk about winter prep. First of all, it's November. I live in the mountains of North Carolina at about 3,000 feet. We're actually more similar to like a beekeeper in maybe, I don't know, Pennsylvania, like southern New York maybe, something like that, because I'm at 3,000 feet. So it's a lot different being a beekeeper here as opposed to on the coast of North Carolina. So first you got to know where you're at. Where I live, we had a freeze probably early October. We've had at least 10 days I've woken up and there was ice on my windshield already. And it's just early November. We tend to get, some decent snows. But basically, my bees, there's no flowers around right now except maybe a few asters. Maybe there's a random goldenrod left. But there's no nectar source for my bees until really the very end of February with willow trees and maples. So my bees need to get through from November until really March to survive bee winter. It is a decently warm day today. It's probably 55, 56 degrees. The bees are out, which is a good sign to me. I don't open my hives in the winter unless my bees are out. When I say open, I mean taking off the top box. I do a deep and a medium, and that is their, overwintering colony size. But I don't open my hive unless it's warm enough for my bees to be flying out. But really, I don't open my hives in the winter. That's the first thing I've learned. There's not much you can do. If your hive is struggling and it's November or December or January, you don't really need to open your hive because guess what, people? If your bees are dead in December, they're going to be dead in January, they're going to be dead in February. Yes, you could combine hives. That's about all you really could do in the winter. But if you don't know why that hive is struggling, you might just pass on that same struggle to a hive that is doing great. So I don't really combine hives past October, and I just hope that my bees have good genetics and that they'll overwinter and that they'll survive until March. But there's definitely things I do to help them survive. Number one, I don't really do a fall harvest. There are some people that harvest in the fall. Sometimes I do, but for the most part, I harvest in June and August, and we have such a great fall nectar flow that I don't actually start feeding my bees until probably early October. I do a 2-to-1 sugar water mixture, and I don't really feed them too much. I know some people are always feeding. I do a couple of weeks of feeding where I fill it up. The tray holds about 2 gallons of feeder. I fill it up a couple times over several weeks. But what I do for the winter is I make sugar candy boards or sugar cakes. I guess candy boards or something else, but sugar cakes. And I'll show you those sugar cakes in a minute. That's what we're doing. We're going to place the sugar cakes, and then we're also going to add a quilt box. So if you don't know what sugar cakes are or quilt boxes, this video should help you. Something else I do, I treat for mites. Some people don't treat for mites. They try to have good bee genetics, but people, you are not a geneticist. I'm sorry. Most likely, if you're watching this video, you're probably not a geneticist. I'm not a geneticist. Bee breeding is harder than people think, because guess what? Your queen can die, a new queen can go and find the local population, which may not even be the local population. It might just be your neighbor's bees, and they got their bees ordered from somewhere 5 states away. You don't really know. So I still treat my bees, and over time I still get good bee genetics, because some of my hives have survived 4 years now. I have about an 80% survival rate with what I do, and that's what I'm hoping. I got 6 hives. If hopefully 4 make it, 5 would be great, 6 would be awesome, but I have about an 80% survival rate with what I do. So let's go ahead and open up these hives and do a little winter prep. Okay, everybody, so we're gonna be doing a couple things. In a minute, I'll show you my candy board. Actually, let me show you my candy board right now. So there's a few things we're doing for the hives today. One of them is I'm adding sugar cakes. Now, this is basically about 4 or 5 pounds of sugar and like half a cup of water and about a teaspoon of vinegar. And that vinegar is to help keep bacteria at bay for the sugar. This does a couple things. First, this is a backup food source. My hives should all have about 50 pounds of honey, hopefully. But this is a backup food source, especially for early spring, when the queen may start up her egg production, but there's not necessarily a lot of flowers out yet. So this is probably going to stay on until March, hopefully, unless they eat it, and then I'll make more. But this is mainly a backup. This has another purpose too, and that is that this sugar is actually going to absorb moisture, and that's a major thing that's going to kill your hives. This is what basically happens, okay? Your bees are inside clustering. When it gets below about 50 degrees, they're going to start clustering, and they stay in that cluster, and they warm themselves by vibrating their muscles, okay? So they're creating heat, and they're drawing in water vapor. That water is going to go to the top of your hive as vapor, then it's going to condensate, and then it's going to drip down back on your bees. If you ever been cold is one thing, but being cold and wet is a totally different situation. It really isn't cold that is going to kill your bees. It's really that moisture. So this here is going to collect some of that moisture, but what's really going to collect the moisture is a quilt box. So this is a homemade quilt box. I'm not a great carpenter, but I try. So this here is basically, I have a shim, which is high enough for me to put my sugar candy on. And then inside the box is a window screen, and I'm gonna fill that up with just wood chips. You can get this from Tractor Supply, any hard, like even a grocery store for hamsters, right? I'm gonna fill this up with wood chips, and what happens, that water vapor is going to go up into the wood chips and be absorbed by the wood chips instead of dripping back down on your bees. This has really helped my bees survive winter. I've had friends lose most of their hives, and I'm still getting, 80% of my hives have survived. So this has been a real game changer for me using quilt boxes. I don't really see too many places you can buy them from yet, but they're really easy to make. You can even use an empty super and just staple some screen on it, which I'm probably going to do that because I don't think I have quite enough of these this year. But this is really, really going to be a game changer. So let's go ahead and add the candy board and the quilt box to our first hive. This was a smaller hive, but I'm hoping it'll pull through winter. So I got the candy on, my quilt box, and this one actually has ventilation holes in it. I need to do that to the other one. And those ventilation holes are basically the wind is going to wick that moisture away from this quilt box. So your quilt box should actually be dry. It shouldn't really be wet when you, I guess, put your hands in it or anything like that. So something else I'm going to make sure I've done is I've had my entrance reducers on. I'm going to drop them down to the smallest entrance so that they're more protected. Mice are a problem sometimes. So if you have a mice problem, there's special entrances you can get. A mouse apparently can go into your hive in the winter, build a nest, eat honeycomb, and be 2 or 3 inches away from your bees, but it's so cold that the bees aren't going to break cluster probably to defend their hive. So again, that could be another problem you have with mice. I haven't had that, thankfully, but you never know, right? Let's go ahead and check on another hive. Okay. Dun dun dun, looking good, baby. Buzzy, buzzy, buzzy bee.